They had, prior to our getting involved in this wonderful building, it had been used, as I said, by the mental health institution here on the hill as a place where they kept their dairy cows. They milked their cows in this particular building. And this was the hayloft here. And the boards here were not covered by the linoleum like this. There were cracks. And when you walked in downstairs, there was old hay hanging down through the cracks, all from one end of this building to the other. But that wasn't the worst of it. Downstairs was where the cows came in to be milked every day, twice a day, some of them actually 3 times a day, because they had a remarkable herd of over 100 big Holstein cows here. In fact, there's one cow, I think you've got a picture here somewhere in the building, that set a state record for milk production. Anyway, this was a great herd of purebred Holstein cattle, and they are producers of milk. And they were handled by the patients who lived here and worked here on the farm under the direction of one wonderful man and his son. Yeah, right. And it was a great operation. But they had moved out 10 years earlier, quit the farm, they'd quit milking cows, so that when they moved this 100 cows out of this building, they left all the manure, and it had dried and hardened and hardened and hardened until, I mean, it was like we had to use pick and shovels to begin to clean it up. The stanchions were still in place where the cows would come in the morning at night, stick their head into a stanchion like this, they'd lock them into place, put feed in front of them into a cement trough that existed, and then they would attach the milkers to them, to their udders, and milk them, and then they'd turn them back out into the pasture. Well, these gutters behind each cow was full of the driest, hardest manure you ever saw in your life. And it was scattered all over the barn. Nobody had bothered. Once they quit milking cows, nobody had bothered to clean the place out, and it hadn't been cleaned out for 10 years. But oh, it was a dreamland. You can't believe the excitement that existed on that 10 to 15 people that we got involved right away. Now you got to remember that we were 20 years, 30 years younger. And that makes a big difference. You kids will know what I'm talking about. In fact, you older people that not near as old as I am recognize it too. When you're younger, you've got more energy, you can dream bigger, and it's wonderful. But we had crews out here, our own. And when we came out, by the way, to take possession of it, we discovered that the contractor was still here trying to tear down the rest of the buildings. And we had to give him orders to leave the rest, leave them alone. Leave anything alone that you can. Anyway, it was an exciting period. Exciting period. We didn't have any trouble getting help. We really didn't. I hauled at least 5 loads of manure, dried, hard manure, out to my farm and scattered it around in my flower beds. Because I wasn't a farmer. I didn't have any farm as such. I lived on a wonderful hill out here. But we had a lot of flower beds. And that was a mistake, because that manure was completely full of weed seeds and grass seeds. And for at least 3 years, I fought every one of them. I pulled weeds and grass out of my flower beds until I was sick and tired of it. And I blamed it all on this place. Anyway, by the time we got it cleaned out and could get some vision of what we were going to do, these women, and I mean the women, now there were 3 or 4 or 5 of us men involved, but believe you me, this dairy barn wouldn't be here as an art center if it wasn't for about 20 women that got involved and worked their whatever off on getting the programs underway. It was just wonderful. We were able to get a good contractor to come and repair the roof, a friend of ours from down in MacArthur. We were able to get volunteer help in all sorts of ways. We got a little grant or two that we were able to fill in with cement the The gutters that went along behind where the cows had been. We were able to remove the stanchions where the cows were locked into place each evening and each morning for milking. And I don't know what happened to them, but those were interesting. Well, I can't remember now what we did with them. But everything like that came out. And then we had, of course, to clean out this upstairs. It was all one great hay mound. Hay, where they stored the hay for the winter of the cows. And it hadn't been cleaned out since the barn was built. So there was piles of old hay everywhere, cobwebs, wonderful cobwebs, probably record-setting cobwebs. But it was an exciting time. We were involved in something so big and so new that we didn't know whether we were going to make a go of it or not. But it had to be done. It had to be done. And we had parties and all sorts of things. We did have some wonderful volunteers among the contractors around the area who would come and do things like cementing over the gutters behind where the cows stood and removing the stanchions. Because a lot of that was just plain hard labor and fixing the roof and that sort of thing. It was an exciting time. You could physically see the changes taking place. And I'm going to be making a comparison pretty soon about the difference between volunteering for something where you can make a physical change, a physical difference right away, or an aesthetic difference in what you do down through the few years after you've cleaned it up and got it ready for all the dreams that you had. That's out there in all of our brains at some time or other. We dream of big things that we can do. And then we run out of time, we think. We run out of fresh ideas. We have a little bit less enthusiasm or energy than we had in the beginning. But if you've got an idea, any one of you that loves the dairy barn, its past or its future or even its present, if you love it, share the ideas you have. Share the enthusiasm you have. Because believe me, it's needed about every 5 to 10 years in any organization, not just the dairy barn. I saw this thing develop here, and I got a little tired of it because my wife was the kind that would say to me, Ora, you get up to Columbus and see about getting another appropriation, or you work out a better deal than we've got, or something. She would point her finger at me. Now listen, you know, I have 2 daughters now that say to me, now Dad,